goes around is, what is the obsession? Well, the obsession you will find out about. I know when read and talk to you about it, because you will find out what it is. And it's the most wonderful thing in the world. And I think it has to do with what always I believe in, is kindness.
Absolutely. And I found a quote from Rock Hudson, which I thought illustrated this magnificent obsession in terms of him working with Jane Wyman. He said he was really grateful to her. He was a rookie actor. She was much more established. And after he thanked her, this is what she said back to him. "Let me tell you something," she said. "It was handed to me by somebody, and I handed it to you. And now it's your turn to hand it to somebody else." And I love that idea of paying it forward.
It's interesting. That's interesting with Jane, because, you know, she was married at one time to Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. You know, so maybe she went through a transition. You know?
Well, I also read an interview where you said you were scared of Jane Wyman at first.
I was terrified. Well, first of all, we had these little cubbyhole things that they had built for the cast, but she had her own, and they even put a picket fence around it and a fake lawn. And I was just always I was kind of scared of her. In the beginning, I didn't even know she liked me. And so one of the scenes I had was I had to take, have you ever tried to balance a cup of coffee on a saucer and walk with it? I had to take the cup of coffee on a saucer, and I had to go up to the door and try to knock on it. And she was inside, of course. And I heard her say, "What is that noise?" And I said, "Oh my God, it's me." It's me, and I can't help it. And it was just the funniest thing. And that's because we were so intimidated by her. And she'd done a lot of movies, and we hadn't. And Rock and I were just kind of, you know, very new to each other, in fact, but I'd done some films with him. And so, anyway, it was kind of interesting working with someone like that. But I worked with a lot of really fantastic ladies, Greer Garson, Claudia Colbert. You know, I was very, very lucky, but I always want to tell an audience that they kind of think, sometimes I run into people that think that actors are spoiled, or they're on drugs, or whatever they think they are. But but anyway, for the most part, everybody I've ever worked with, they were kind to me, which is, you know, I believe in. But they went out of their way to be kind. And I always said, you never go to class. You never go to class to learn to act. What you try to get is a part with a famous actor, like a Spencer Tracy, or like a James Mason, or Jimmy Stewart, or somebody like. They teach you, because if you act with them, they are so real, you become real too. And that was a big, big lesson for me with all of them. And that's why I think the greatest teachers are great actors. And they give it to you. And so I was very, very lucky about that, because I thought a lot about, like, the magnificent obsession. I thought, well, what that's all about, you know? And I thought, and talked to my dad about it. And he said, well, Barbara, you know, what it is about how you treat other people. You know, what do you want? Do you want them to give you something, or do you want to give them something? And he said, that's what it's all about. And give it a little think. Give it a little think. You know, just think about it a little bit. And so I think it works out. I think this film works out for people who can kind of connect with it, because it certainly did for me, acting in it. Rock Hudson is the one who benefits most from it, but, well, Jane too, in a way. But I think because of the way it goes, you will find yourself not maybe a better person, but a better thoughtful person, you know, and I think you'll be interested in how that works. And this is Douglas Sirk, I think, at his best. Yeah.
I agree, absolutely, and I always loved Douglas Sirk and Rock Hudson together. And you adored Rock Hudson, didn't you? He made you laugh?
Oh, well, Rock, it was so funny. And when he worked with Doris Day, and he always called her, oh, what did he call her? Eunice. He always called her Eunice. And I think he called me BJ. And I can't remember why he did that. Oh, I know what he really called me is Una, because we did Taza, son of Cochise. And I was supposed to be an Indian girl kind of thing. And so he did, and I was Una, he called me Una dos Tres. And then he just called me Una. He was so funny. He could make you laugh, and he had such a laugh. And Doris would get just hysterical. I mean, she just said, Barbra, because before I know her very well, and she said, I think I'm going to work with Rock Hudson. And she said, what's he like? And I said, I think he'll find out very quickly what he's like. And he ended up calling her Eunice. But he was so much fun. And very often, the directors would say, you're ruined, you're just, David did this to me too, because he would go like this and he'd say, yeah, and it would make me laugh. And they said, Barbra, you can't laugh. You just cannot laugh. Well, if you've been told not to laugh, that's exactly what you do. It's very hard. And for me, I just go into almost hysteria sometimes. I just get it. It's just so funny. David Niven and Rock Hudson and so a lot of other people I worked with. But I've always thought acting was not acting and just paying attention to what somebody's saying to me. And so I have an answer, you know. So to be, I'm not big on that, but I think I told the audience the other day what it was like to be with Marlon Brando, who was always so spontaneous, and it says, I was going to do a film with Marlon Brando, and we were supposed to be skiing down mountains and so forth in the Alps, and we were supposed to be very ice cold, and you know, and it was very cold and skiing and falling and snow and so forth. And so then we had a party that night in this chalet up in the thing. It was done on the sound stage. And he said, I was in the balcony, and I had the balcony of the chalet, and I had a very kind of gossamer dress on, you know, black or something, chiffon. And I was going like this, ooh. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm being cold. Because it's cold. He said, no, it isn't. We're on the sound stage. And I said, I'm an actress. This is pretend. And he said, no, they should have taken us there to Sweden, to the chalet. And I said, but they don't want to. So we have to do it here, or they won't do it at all. And so he said, no, this is just ridiculous. We can't do this because there's no And so I said, well, you do what you want to do. I'll do what I want to do. And you'll probably be listened to, because certainly they listen to you, but they would never listen to me. But at least I would have a better explanation. Yes. That's great.
As we were walking down to the theatre, I noticed that you stopped and paid tribute to Robert Osborne, a picture of him out there. And this being the 25th anniversary of the network today, what did he mean to you?
Well, first of all, we grew up together in the business. He was under contract to Lucille Ball, and he and I just worked together, and he was a journalist. I worked on the Hollywood Reporter, but and I knew him very well. We had a group of friends that we always walked. At the Hollywood sign. Well, under that Hollywood sign is a reservoir, and so there's a place to walk around the reservoir. And so we always used to go and meet up there and walk around the reservoir and go down to this place where we'd have breakfast together. And so we did that for, it seems to me now, years. And there were about 6 of us, I think, all together. And we just had such a good time. And then later on, and he lived very near the Hollywood sign at that time. But then later on, maybe 3 or 4 years, he moved to New York to work, and I think fraternity. I can't remember what he was working. I guess he still had his
column.
A column. He had a column, in New York in a paper, and anyway, I would go back to New York once in a while first of all, to do a play or do something like that, and he was like a very dear brother to me, and we just and not just to me, to lots of people, but he was such a wonderful. He just knew everything. He just knew it. He had an encyclopedic thing about movies. He knew every movie, even silent films, ever. If I was doing a crossword puzzle, I would say 6 letters, and it's supposed to be something. And he'd say, well, this is what it is. And I said, how do you know that? He said, because I know it. I just know it. He said, I said, Bob, there's anything you don't know about movies. And he said, that's probably true, but he was just a wonderful, wonderful man. And he was so into the film and how they were doing it, and he was so innovative. And I think, I know Ted Turner, was here yesterday or the day before, but I think it was Bob who really got this classic thing going in Turner movie classics.
Yeah, he was the definition of kindness and paying it forward.
He was, and he was kind about people. I'll have to tell you a little story. He called me and he said, Barbara, they're going to do a film. They're going to do a film over at Universal, and Spielberg did it, and this was early time. Nobody knew about it. It was Spielberg at that time, but anyway, they're going to show it, and he said I got to go because I got to cover it, and then I have to go to New York. So I said okay. So Bob Osborne and I went to Universal all alone in a theater this big, and because they had those kinds of theaters to screen, and so we sat there, and it was called E.T.
Just a little movie called E.T., no big deal.
And I said, E.T., huh? What would that be? It started, and I got so into it. And I got the aliens and the whole thing, and this adorable little alien. It's just adorable, with this darling little boy who loved him and tried to protect him. And I thought, this is the most interesting thing I've ever seen in my life. But at the end of it, and when they were saying goodbye, I think I was just all water. I was almost crying, and everybody was. And Bob even had a little tear coming down his face. Mm-hmm. And I said, that is the best picture I think I've ever seen. I said, don't you think so, Bob? He said, well, at least one of them, And I called my husband, who was a publicist, Warren Cowan, and I said, you've got to handle this picture. You will never see anything like it. I said, this is an amazing accomplishment, to make you believe that this little darling alien who says, "Oh, go there." This is the most amazing thing you've ever seen in your life, and you get very emotional. And I've never seen anybody that watched E.T. that wasn't a little emotional at the end.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I just loved being there. And so I saw this documentary of a thing where Spielberg is on one side, he's off screen, and this darling little boy. And he was saying to the little boy, you just hear his voice, now somebody's come and they're going to take something away from you that you really want, but they're trying to get it away from you. What would you do? And the little boy said, "It's mine. It belongs to me." And Spielberg says, "You got the part." You got the part.
Well, a movie that never fails to make me cry is Magnificent Obsession. So let's get into the film. Barbra Rush.
Are we seeing a film?
Thank you so much. Please thank Barbra Rush. You're wonderful.